Well, let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do today is comping. And I'd like to just start with somebody's property if they have one that they want us to comp. And I'll break it down as we comp it, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And feel free to ask questions as we go. Anybody have a property you want me to comp for you? Anyone? All right, if no one has a property they want me to comp, what I can do is, did you say something, Pamela? No. Okay.
I have one.
Oh, you do?
It's just a property that was we pulled up on Privy.
Sure.
Let me see.
That's perfectly fine.
It's 3821 8th Street S, St. Petersburg.
Three, 821.
8th Street.
8th Street?
S. Yeah, 8th Street S.
To get them ready for some day.
Okay. Not finding this address. I'm probably doing it wrong. Let me go to Google. Oh, I got an extra 5 in there. That's my problem. Okay, so south, right? 8th
Yes.
Street south.
8th Street.
All righty, I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we are. This is the property.
Let me see. Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'll show you why, but I want to turn on the blue button here. In order to see the blue button, what you have to do is go into your filter, and I'm going to tell it St. Petersburg. Am I spelling that right? Maybe it wants me to spell it Saint. There we go. And you have to turn on the sold. Well, you don't have to turn on sold. What you have to do is turn on fix and flip. And either way, you need the fix and flip on, whether you're looking at sold properties or active properties. Turn on the fix and flip and set the ARV if you want to something else. The blue button is going to try to give you a comparable based on the condition of the property. So it's going to try to get you as close to 75% value of the after repair value as it can. Based on my quick glance at that property, I'm going to guess it needs to be lower. So I'm going to, I don't know if it's 65 or 6 or 70, but I'll try 65 and see if we get any blue buttons in there. So I run the search, and now I'm going to type that address in there again. Without the 5. All right, south, here we are. Okay, so now that I did that, I should have blue. Yeah, see here, the blue button. So your goal is to get just the blue button properties instead of having to go through all the other stuff. If you click on the blue button, you'll see you have red, green, yellow. Always stick with sold. The problem with the actives and the under contracts are that's not the sold value. That's not necessarily the real value. They could list it anywhere they want. And because it's under contract doesn't mean it's under contract at the listed value. So you really have no clue how close these are to reality. So only use sold. So there's two ways to do it. If you click on the blue button, you see the reds here. So you can use these 5s as your comparables, or you can click on the sold and then use the blue 5. Either way, you get the same results. There's 5 here. They're the identical same 5 here. I'm just going to click on the investor blue. I'm going to hide all of the yellows and greens just to keep from confusing me. You don't have to hide them. I just like to keep a fairly clean slate of what I'm looking at. So now I know that the investor, button here is telling me these are potential properties that would be a comparable. So a comp stands for a comparable property. You're comparing apples to apples. You want something that's a similar size, similar build generation, same amount of levels, basement, garage, everything needs to kind of fit as far as the property type and property location and property condition. What we're talking about with condition is after repair value, not current state, after repair value. We're trying to find the after repair value, right? Obviously, this property is not in after repair value state at this moment. It needs fixed up. So I don't even have to look at the pictures, just externally, I can see it needs a little bit of work. So I could probably scroll through here and see much more about its condition. Yeah, it's in a fair amount of need. So it's definitely a good opportunity. When you're looking at opportunities, you don't want to go after properties that's in mint condition because someone's already done the work. What do they need us for? So we want properties that need some form of work. And basic rehab is the best. Gut jobs and teardowns have potential, but a lot of buyers don't want those right now due to the market conditions. Lipsticks and cosmetics, they're just a whole lot harder to find because they can just be retail a lot of times. But the basic rehab type like this, that's exactly what you're looking for. As long as it fits the bill as price tag, you're good to go. So looking down here to try to figure out the ARV on this, we know this property is not in a good state. Someone's got to pour money into it, right? It's at $162 per square foot. If you use this with the blue button, you can filter these down. You already know these are kind of a match because the blue button, and if you don't hit the all activity, it's going to automatically filter to properties of a similar size. All of these are automatically similar size. And because it's the investor blue button, you know that these are also potential properties that have been fixed and flipped. You can tell if they're fixed and flipped as well by if it has a stack. So a bolded one underneath a non-bolded one. This one looks to be fixed and flipped. This one does, and this one does. But if you sort by this column of $1 per square foot, you can see where the properties are falling in comparison to our subject property. Ours is $162. Sometimes you'll find that the $1 per square foot is well below the 162. That simply means that that property sold before it was fixed up. So if it's a low dollar price tag that was sold, it's not really comparable for after repair value. A lot of times you can spot that simply by looking at this, and you can just simply hide them. Like if I was to click on all activity, I would see more properties. And if I sorted this, oh, there's not that many. This area doesn't have, oh, I'm sorry, let me go over here. Here we are. Yeah, so for sold properties, you see $22 per square foot. I don't even need to look at that property. That property is not an after repair value property. You know, just looking at $22, there's no way that's going to be a fix and flip. So you can just hide it. Once you get the feel of your area, if you're working in a region and you know that region, you're going to get a feel of where this needs to be. And you can just look at it and say, you know what, I know that $143 a square foot is not repaired. I don't even need to look at it. If you're uncertain, you're learning the territory, click the eye over here, take a look at the property, see the condition, and say, oh yeah, I was right. This is not an after repair value house. It has not been repaired. So once you get the hang of it, you don't even need to look at it. Just hide it, hide it. Now this one is above the value of ours, but we know ours is in pretty rough state. I'm gonna take a look at this one, but I'm thinking this is not an after repair value house either. Let me take a look. And again, you can see just by looking at the pics, this property is not an after repair value. You don't have to scroll through all of them. You can tell right away that it's not in as bad shape as I thought it would be, but it's not a fix and flip house. So you can hide that one too. Now I clicked on all activity just to show you some of the others. I'm gonna unclick it because your goal is to use the blue button first off. Because if you use the blue button, you're gonna save yourself a lot of time. You don't have to sort through a whole bunch of properties. I showed you that to show what you would do if there was a lot of properties here, but there's not. So you only have these to worry about. And what you want to do is, first off, check for price per square foot, get rid of any of them that are not an after repair value. If you're uncertain, like this one is $292, that might be after repair value. So you can check it and see the state of it. We don't have pictures of the interior, so it's kind of hard to tell. If you don't have pictures of the interior, you can just grab the address, you can stick it in Google, and a lot of times other sites have interior pics. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but you can try to, try to find see if it's repaired or not. Don't waste a lot of time because, you know, your time is worth money, right? So you don't want to waste a bunch of time looking at the possibilities of maybe this site, maybe that site, maybe that site. So if you check out one or two of them and they don't show you, don't worry about continuing your search. The next property down is a stack. The stack is basically telling me that Privy thinks this was a fix and flip by its own algorithm. It does that in multiple ways. Number one, it was bought and sold within 12 months. So typically, if it's bought and sold within 12 months, it's going to be an investor property. Not that it has to be, but it probably would be. It's more likely a fix and flip because of it's quickly transitioning from one seller to another, one buyer to another. The other reason is because of the difference between its original price and its second price within that same year. It went from 161,000 to 420,000 in the same year. So that basically says this has got to be a fix and flip. If you're going to double check it over here, you could see before and after, and you can see the difference in the two houses, and it's obviously been fixed up. It looks staged, you know, everything looks pristine. So this is definitely a fix and flip property. So that tells us 292 is in the range of a fix and flip property. I'm sorry, 298. 292 might be. We're going to leave it here for the moment. We don't have the number of beds and baths here, baths, but not beds. So I'm not going to be too anxious to figure that one out. But going down here, I see a 311, 500. That is super high. 621, even more so. It makes me wonder about those two, what's going on with them. Looking at the area, one thing I forgot to mention is you want to try to stay in the neighborhood, not crossing major roads or rivers or anything like that. So what you could find is, like, if one of these properties was actually on this side, it might be totally different than properties on this side. Here's a fairly big road. Maybe the properties are different on that side. But in all honesty, I wouldn't necessarily disqualify them in this small state. The roads are not that tremendously different to disqualify them. So what I would do is just go down this as well and see why these might be so different in price. But one thing I want to look at too, before I move on, a comparable, it needs to be not just the same size, but it needs to be a similar structure, similar build generation. So the structure, 1 level versus 2 level would make it a different structure, totally different type of house. Typically, you want to stay with the same amount of garage, same amount of bed and bath. You're not always going to get an exact match, but if you can find it, it helps. But one of the things that does make a big difference is build generation. This is a 1948 house. You cannot compare a 1948 house to a 2000 house, a 1988 house, a 1995 house. Those are just way too old. You get to the late 60s and the house structure starts to change. But you get before the 60s, there's not that much difference in building materials and construction methodologies. So a 1948 house is not that much different than any of these properties, these other dates. 1922 is a little bit early, but it's not that bad because you go this far back and those 24 years isn't that significant. So you can not worry about the build generation in this case, but you still have these 5 properties. These 2 here look like outliers. And another thing that you want to do is look at the dates. You want to try to match the date if possible. This is the only date that's actually fairly close. These are quite a while back. So what I'm going to do is hide these 3 just because they're from a long time ago. I like to try to stay within 3 months, especially because our market has transitioned to a downward facing market. And anything you get from older than that is not going to be a big bump. So this is the only one of the blue buttons that is in the ballpark. You could simply go with a 298, or if you wanted, go with the after repair value here, 420 is close enough. A more accurate way would be to take this 298 and multiply it by the square foot of 1324, and you're going to end up with a little bit less than 420. I don't know, 410, something like that. But you also want to look over here and say, okay, this was a 2 bath. Ours is a 1 bath. So perhaps ours would be a little bit lower even because of that. So we might drop it all the way down to 400 for that reason. Now, what I'm going to say is I'm not really comfortable with a July unless I have to, because July is like, what, 5 months ago, right? So that's a long time ago in this market. I would even deduct more of the price tag because it's 5 months old. So instead of using the 5-month-old, what I would, if I was going to use this one property, I would take it 400 and just drop it more because of it's an old date. So maybe another 10% down. 10% of 400 is 40. So 360 would be the number I would probably land on with this property because of the facts that, it's got 1 bathroom less, and especially it's 5 months old. That's the big killer right there. But now I'm going to show you how to do it with all activity. With all activity, you have a whole bunch more you got to sort through, right? So you don't want to use all activity unless you have to. And if you use all activity, make sure you're on the red on the sold, because you don't want to use these and you already looked at that one. So with that in mind, all activity, it's going to give you properties that are way different. They're not even comps. So what you need to do is start by filtering out properties that are way too small or way too big. With this size of a house, 1,200, 1,400 square feet, you can go a couple hundred, maybe 250 square feet less, and a couple hundred, 250 square feet more. But if you get beyond that, especially like beyond 300 square feet, it's no longer comparable. So anything less than 1,000 for certain, I'm not going to use. I'm just going to go ahead and hide them because they're just simply too small to even call it a comparable. Houses, the people that are going to buy a 1,300 square foot house, they're not looking at an 800 square foot house. It's not on their list. So you want to try to capture the same market of people which means it's got to be in a similar square footage. So coming down below as well, you know, we want to stay within 200 to 300 max difference. So I'm going to flip this around and look at the top end and hide them as well. So I'm going to take all these big ones off the chart. All right, so now we're in a much more similar zone of properties. This one's still a little bit small, but this one is a stack, that's a stack. That one is not a stack. That one's a stack, that one, and that one's not. So the majority of these were actually renovated. So if I sort by dollar per square foot, I can see 204, 228, 253, 298. That's the one we looked at before. 316, 329, and 334. I'm gonna guess this one's not renovated. I'm just gonna kind of look at it and see what it's showing me. And yeah, you know, if it's renovated, they're typically gonna show after pictures. They're not gonna just show it like that. If I wanted to be secure on that, I could copy that address, stick it back over here, and see if another listing has pictures. Again, I'm not gonna waste a lot of time doing that. I'm just gonna try to, okay, this one does have pictures. So I'm gonna go look on the inside and see what it shows us. Just looking at that picture right there, the kitchen,
No.
that tells me that's not a fix and flip.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I don't need to look any further on this one. I can just hide this one. I know that is not a fix and flip. This one says it's fix and flipped, but that dollar amount is way less than the one we had looked at. And one thing I want to do too, again, we were looking at a property that was from July and we wanted to find something that's closer to date, right? Well, this one is April. I'm just going to hide that. This one is May. I'm going to hide that because I don't want to worry about those. I'm just trying to find something better than the July 12th date. These are the only ones that are even possibly better. 87, that's a different build generation than a 1948. That's a much newer home. I don't even want to look at that because it doesn't match. So I'm down to these. These are the three properties that are kind of in the ballpark of.
Till July.
Was that? So these are the properties that might be comparables. This one's a 3-1, this one's a 3-1. You can look at the lot size. It doesn't have to be exact. These are all in the same ballpark. You don't need to make an adjustment for lot size if you're in the ballpark. All of these are, you know, 6,000, 7,000 square feet. Even if they're a couple thousand different, it doesn't matter. Dollar per square foot. This one is significantly less than our comp property of 298. I'm going to take a quick peek at it and see if I can figure out why it's less. Doesn't look bad. I see, let's see here. It's not a bad rehab, you know, it's not a high-end rehab. And I would have, you know, this area seems to be a pretty nice area. You got 1.2 million right here. But I probably would have put a little bit more into it than they did, which is probably why the price tag was lower. But again, we're talking about all three of these from July. So they're like 5 months ago. What you could do at this point, if you wanted to, there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is just to sort it by dollar per square foot and grab the middle one. If we were to just simply grab the middle one, we'd land right back where we were on the original comp with the blue button, right? If you wanted to do it a little bit more scientifically, what you would do is add up 228, 298, 334, and divide by 3. Anybody want to run that real quick for me? 228 plus 298 plus 334 divided by 3. Anybody got it? Hello, hello.
286 or
280.
287, I guess.
Okay, so if you went with 287, and then again, you know, last time we had an extra bathroom, we subtracted out. This time we're dealing with the exact same bathroom count. We are dealing with an older property. So if we take that 287, right? Take the 287, multiply it by the square feet of 1324. What'd you come up with?
379,546.67.
All right, so we're going to call that 380. And again, it's old. You know, the sold date is like 5 months old still. So we're going to take that 380 times 0.9. Where'd you land at?
0.9.
422.
I think there's an error there.
341,592.
Yeah, so 342. That's right. So you know 342 is the comp. If you do it this way, if you stick with the blue button, you're going to end up with 360. If you're doing a ballpark comp, which initially you just want to do a ballpark comp. If you're trying to see if this property has any potential, you want to get in the ballpark. You can use this 298 price tag instead of the other one. So if I was to take that 298 one and multiply it out, so 298 times 1324, 394. I'm going to subtract 10K for the lack of a bathroom. So our 395 minus 10K is 385 times 0.9. That lands me at 347. So the first one was at what was the price again on the first one?
341,592.
Okay, so 342 and 347. One methodology landed us on 347, the other landed us on 342. Not a big difference between the two. You know, I was spitting numbers out before without actually calculating 298 times 1324 and then subtracting out the bathroom. And then I subtracted 10K for the bathroom and then subtracting 10% for the old date. We end up at 347. But if we do it, you know, take these three, average them out, and we end up at 342. So if you use 342 or 347, you'll be just fine. You want to split it down the middle, that's fine too. Call it 345, right? So this is a ballpark. You don't have to be exact, but those are the steps you go through to try to find a comparable property in the area. Whose property was this?
That's mine.
Okay. Does that help, Mary?
It does.
All right, cool. Anybody else have a property you want to do right now?
Ralph,
Yes.
I have like 5 properties like this.
Okay.
So what would
yeah.
be my next step? Call the person and can I send these to you guys?
Mary, who is your acquisition manager?
Ray.
Okay. So yeah, so you're in regular communication with Ray, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you would enter this into the CRM. There's a web form for you to enter it in.
But I know I got the web form. I've submitted them, but I was just wondering if I could actually like do this, call them, comp them, and then send them in because it's not in my 3221 zip code.
Yeah, we're not doing zip codes anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not in the loop.
I guess not. We opened it up to first come, first serve because there's a lot of property finders that were not doing anything.
Okay.
So we just said, you know what? We're going to reward the action takers. They can go wherever they want. First come, first serve. So the first thing you want to do is go to that web form, type the address into the web form. It will tell you if this property is already taken or not. So
Okay.
if the property is not taken, it's yours. right? So you can start filling out the web form, and you can do this comp to see where you're landing. Do the calculator. You have access to that calculator we made for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Call the agent. You can call the agent before you calculate it or after you calculate it. It's up to you. I like to do it after. I do a ballpark before, like this. I do a ballpark of the repairs. That whole calculator is a ballpark calculator. So you can come up with your ballpark first offer. You're not going to be making an offer, but you just call the agent and you're gathering intel. You're finding out information about the property condition. You're finding out information about the seller and how motivated they are, if they're willing to budge. If they're at 215 and it's been on the market for how long? 12 days? Oh, not much. Usually if it's only 12 days, they're not going to budge a whole lot, but they might budge. So you want to get it below the list price, because most of the people that we're selling to, our buyers, are not going to want to pay list price. They're going to want to pay under list. That's the service we're providing to them, is we're finding the needle in the haystack of the sellers that are willing to negotiate. We're finding motivated sellers. We're getting the price down for them so they don't have to do all that work. So in order to make this a deal, it's got to be well under 200K, just from the perspective of a buyer being interested. But if you run that calc and, maybe it tells you 100. I don't know what it'll tell you, but let's just say it tells you 100. Now you have that in your head so that when you call the agent, you don't tell them, yeah, we want to make an offer of 100. You don't spit a number out, but what you do is you say, we won't be able to offer anywhere near the 215. We'd just like to know if this seller would be willing to negotiate. Is he flexible at all? And let them answer. So when they start talking, do a lot of listening, and you're going to hear more of how motivated the seller is, why he's selling, what's his timeline, how quickly does he have to get out of the property. All of those things are good negotiating factors that can be passed off to the acquisition manager so that they can put in a first offer, they can negotiate it, and they can close it. Does that make sense, Mary?
Yes.
And so those are the steps that you need to do. Talking to the agent is vital, and get all that information into the CRM so that the acquisition manager can pick it up from there. Make sense?
It does.
Awesome. Alrighty, who else has a property?
Hey, actually, I got one, Ralph.
Hey, Ray.
What's going on? I just want your opinion on it, because I was talking to Mike, our new dispo, and the thing is, because Aji left, I didn't really know what kind of dispo we had developed in Jacksonville, like what kind of buyers, because I actually been trying to connect with buyers a little bit on my own. So I didn't really know what they're looking for, or who we got. So I just kind of want just another opinion on this one. Just so, because I've got an agent who wants to work with me on this. I believe this was not exactly which property finder's property this was who brought it in, but let me grab the address real quick. Let's see. Okay, so this one is, and I'll put it in the chat for everybody else too, 3316 in Laura Street, Jacksonville.
Got it.
Yeah. See. And I guess I can quickly kill two birds with one stone, because me and Marie were gonna meet today anyway, so I can just kind of mention something to her while we're doing that. So I had this long list of properties that I was gonna put offers on in my virtual market, Indianapolis. Some of them I put offers on, some of them I didn't. But the thing is, so I went back like after about 2 months, just went through all the properties again. This is all on Privy. You would not believe all the price drops on those properties. I went back 20,000, 15,000, 7,000, 25,000. And this is just after like 2 months, 3 months top. So this is for every property finder on here who's listening, or even acquisition managers. Do not be like deterred by seeing a list price saying, oh, they're not gonna drop this, or this is where they're from. Those list prices are just numbers. They're just arbitrary. I have the physical evidence of dozens and dozens and dozens of properties just after 2 months where I went back and they were drop, or sold for 25, 30,000 less than what they were listed at. So do not be deterred or intimidated by a list price when you're going in to talk to these agents, because that price is just arbitrary. It can go down. That's all I was going to say to everybody. Yeah.
Well stated, Ray. Thank you very much. That was perfect.
Yeah.
And
that's just when you're going in and talking to agents. So that price, I mean, just, right.
No, that's good information. I noticed this says currently rented. That's good to keep in mind, because if it's rented, it says 323 EXP rent.
That's when the lease is up for the tenant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what I was thinking. That's probably the date of the lease up. So if someone's going to buy it as a fix and flip, they would want to do that around the date of 323, right? Or they might just hold it for a few months until the renter is gone and then fix and flip it. When you're comping for a rental, it's not the same as comping for a fix and flip. And the same thing with actually the work done to the property is typically not at the same level if it's going to be a rental as if it's going to be a retail fix and flip property. So you want to kind of have that in mind. The comparables in the area should tell you as well, is this a rental area, a rental neighborhood, or is it a retail? So you want to make the property appropriate for its neighborhood, and the actual comps will kind of tell you where it's landing. I see already that there's 2 rentals in the neighborhood, and that kind of gives me an idea that perhaps this is a rental neighborhood. But I'm going to dig deeper before I actually call it that. So right now, I'm not seeing anything, right? I'm going to double check first off that the blue button filter is set. I think it is, but let me double check. Yeah, it is. Okay. And I'm going to take this up to 75 just so that it can help me out a little bit. Maybe something will pop up, maybe it won't. So there's no sold in this area without clicking all activity. So the steps you want to go through is, first, is there a blue button sold? No. Then you go to the solds that are not blue. Nope, there's still none. So now you have to go to the next step, which is all activity. And that'll provide you more properties within this half a mile square radius or square area. There's still not that many. I only got 3 sold properties within this half a mile area. And remember, you want to stay on the right side of these major roads. So this is obviously is a freeway. We got a freeway here, a main road here. There's really only one property, 234, that price tag that fits that bill. When I look down here, I see 234. it's in that area. But man, look at these dollar per square foot, 79, 38, 96, and 41. And this is supposedly an after repair value dollar per square foot. That doesn't even sound right. Something that doesn't sound like number one, that I do know that if it's a rental area, the dollar per square foot is going to be lower. And if you're not in a market like, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth is a high dollar per square foot area. Jacksonville is more often than not higher, but not the whole area. But these prices seem so low. The 38, I already know that there's no way that can be a fix and flip. Just to glance at it, yeah, I can see it's in disrepair. So I'm going to hide that one right away. 96 and 41. I know this is a stack with a bold, but there's something wrong with this. There's no way it can be a fix and flip. Yeah. So before and after, what happened was somebody bought it and sold it within that time frame. Well, it looks like it was just over 12 months, but about 12 months. And because of that, it tagged it as a fix and flip, but it is clearly not a fix and flip. So I'm going to hide that too. This one's only $96. That does not sound like a fix and flip either. So I'm going to double check it. And again, I don't see that it was fix and flipped. If I want to double check this property, just the price tag alone tells me this is more than likely not a fix and flip, but I'm going to stick it in here just to see what others tell me. If I go to, let's try Redfin. There's no pictures. It looked in disrepair, unmaintained. Yeah. So what we're dealing with here, Ray, you gave me a good one. Oh, am I on the right property? No, I'm not. All right. All right, here we are. So there are no real good comparables in this area. So if I run across this where there's nothing sold, I am not going to go to active, because like Ray just stated, active doesn't mean a thing. Just because they have it listed for $400 a square foot doesn't mean it's worth $400 a square foot. So I'm not going to use actives at all. If I have nothing to go by in this region, what I'm going to do is I'm going to widen out my region. So I'm going to zoom out, and I want to try to stay over here if I can. So I'm going to draw a bigger area to search within. I want to try to stay within this region, but I'm going to go higher than I was before and see if this yields me any results. So I got another property up there. Looking at this other property, it's 225 per square feet. That one looks much better as far as actually being a potential fixed up property. So I'm going to take a look at that one. Wow. That's a nice property. It is really not a comparable either, because looking at our subject property, it doesn't quite fit the same profile, right? We're not talking about the same buyer type for this property as we are for this property. So this is a tough one.
Yeah, that's exactly why I was asking Ralph, like, have you guys got in touch with any or had Aji got in touch with any buyers who are looking for rental properties? Because this is like this weird detached duplex, because it's like at that point, because I didn't see like the comps, just like you're not seeing, I'm like, okay, have we even talked to, like, have we even developed a dispo arm out there where somebody you could even bounce stuff off of, like, hey, are you into rentals? Are you into duplexes? Are you buying and holding? So yeah, that was kind of the direction I was going. But yeah, even that, also that 275, that's not a real number either, because the agent who's representing on that is talking 250, 245. So that's the number he's throwing out there. So so that 275 isn't even a real number either. So that came down, as you guys can see, from I think it was 20K above that. It was a 20K price drop, and then they're still dropping even further because they kind of see that there's not a lot of interest in bites in that.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to fly off the market as it is.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing now is I took this bigger swath of area, and I know I'm crossing highways, I'm crossing major roads, but one of the laws of comping is you have to have a comp. You have to compare it against something. So this exercise, Ray's question about, do we have any buyers that we can talk to about rentals? To answer that question, Aji had her buyers list that she didn't put into the system. So we don't really have access to her buyer list. She had as well a subscription to a really expensive buyers list service. And, that's not something that we could carry over. But Mike is going to have to, basically just reach out and try to dig up that information, Ray. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's where that stands.
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit on my own too. But yeah, so there, and the reason why, like I said, I'm spending time on this one is because, like I said, I don't remember exactly which property finder put this in, and I believe it was Jed, and then the agent is like really motivated, and then the seller is really motivated. So we could find an actual price that works, then I'll put an offer in. But like I said, I gotta find the dispo first. I gotta, see like, hey, to even give them a number, you know what I mean? Like, hey, even if the number ends up being like 200, then, hey, that's the number right now. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of struggling to kind of give them that number.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with an after repair value based off of properties that are not good fits. I've already expanded way out, right? So you don't want to typically expand out beyond that half mile if you can help it. I have expanded way out because I'm trying to find as close of a fit as I can. One thing while you're talking I did is I deleted, there was like a 1920 house, a 2020 house. Anything that's way out of the build generation, you want to get rid of. So this is 1941. This is 1995. That is not a comparable. A 41 house is not a comparable to a 95. So I'm going to hide that one. And you also want to get rid of like ours. Do we know how many beds and baths it is?
This one is like this, if you scroll back up to the property remarks, yeah, it's saying unit 1 is like this 4, 2.5 at 1448, and then the second one is like a 4.3 at 1892. So
wow, so that's got actually quite a bit of space in there.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just like a weird property that just like this picture right here in the front doesn't really show. Right, doesn't show like how much space it is. It's just like a weird property to come across, so
3478. Yeah, it's definitely big enough that it should produce income that makes it worthwhile.
Right, just got to find what buyers are looking at rentals like that, because like you said, it's not. If you've got a tenant in there till the end of March, you can't flip it, or you know what I mean. So yeah,
and there's really, if it's rented, there's no reason to rehab it, right, until they actually leave.
If that's the play you're gonna do.
If that's the play you're gonna do. One thing I like to do when I'm comping a rental, I'll comp it both ways. I'll comp it as a retail fix and flip, just in case they want to go that direction. And then I'll comp it as an income producing property. With this case, I didn't read the description enough to notice that this is actually a 2-unit property, a duplex.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with a duplex, it's typically going to be a rental period. You know, I mean, yeah, they could potentially put family in the other side, but it's basically a rental property. And that changes your whole concept of comping, because you know, if you're below a 4-unit, it's going to be comped. It's going to be evaluated in 2 ways. It's going to be evaluated based off of its ability to produce income and based off of comparables in the area. Then it needs to fit both criteria, because you don't want to overpay based on comparables and you don't want to overpay based on cash flow. So those are the 2 ways that you really need to comp it to make sure it's going to be a go. So I'm going to do the comparable method now, but this is a tough one because there's not a lot hitting the market in that area to compare it with. I did expand out. I've got these properties, but you know, this is 3,400 square feet. Next thing I'm going to do is get rid of these that are way, way smaller, unless perchance that this is actually a duplex. And it doesn't look like a duplex. It's a 3-3. I'm going to get rid of that. Let me double check this one. Yeah. See, now it looks like we're not in the rental neighborhood anymore. That's the tough part, is we're not really comparing apples to apples when we're doing this, because it's so far away. Let me double check this one. Okay. So we're getting a little bit closer in size, but let me double check this one. This one's not even rehabbed. 500K. That must have been, it must have been a package deal for it to be so much money when it's in that shape. But it looks like we're going to be in the, you know, we're at 79. Let me double check this price tag. Man, they need to, there's no view from the front. Maybe they like it that way, but this one's a whole lot better. Interesting property. I'm sure that's, you know, it's a pretty good property. So now we're getting into the after repair value type houses. Nice. So the challenge here are these properties kind of give an indication of dollar per square foot. However, the challenge that we're facing is that these are retail properties. This is a rental property, totally different type of property, right? This one's old, this one's new. I'm going to get rid of the old one. So, you know, we might be looking at, we're not going to fix it up as nice as this one for certain. So maybe 150. So we might be at 50% right now, perhaps at the 79 mark. Maybe we're at 50% of the after repair value. I'm just going to call it 150 for after repair value. So 150 times the square feet. And I already know that that's, you know, that's well below the price tag. Let me calculate it out. Come on, calculator. So the square feet calc tells me it's around 520-ish. That's just something to keep in my head, but it's not really a comparable because it's not apples to apples. It's retail to duplex, right? So this is a tough one because there's not really a lot of, my goal would be to find a duplex to compare it against, or a 2-unit, but there's no other 2 units in the area that I can compare it against. So I'm gonna have that in my head, 520, once this is fixed up, it's gotta be, we have to be able to make sure that it's after repair value price is below 520. But the primary thing we're gonna use on this one is the cash flow. And there's a whole different way of comping when you deal with cash flow, because you have to take into consideration a lot more things, like when you're cash flowing, you have to compare the rents coming in versus expenses going out. And the expenses going out are not just the PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. It also includes, you want to include maintenance, you want to include property management fee. So you want to make sure that it's actually going to cash flow. And I don't want to throw too much in on this exercise of comping because it's going to throw people off. But there's a way of calculating if it's going to be a good price tag for a rental income property that's totally different than the others. And Ray, are you good with that? If you want to talk later about how to comp a cash flow property, we can do that.
Yeah, we could talk later about that. That is one area that I could probably use a little bit of improvement. But yeah, I just wanted to throw this one at you. I didn't mean to stump you, but yeah, I was like, yeah, I just want another.
No, that's good, Ray.
Another opinion, because you basically came to the same conclusion I did on this one. Like, this is just a weird type of property.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, at some point, I'm just probably gonna throw a low offer out there just not to get stuck on it, because it's like, I don't want to waste my time with it. But yeah, it's just a weird one. So I just wanted another set of eyes on it, just to kind of see what someone else who can comp to thought. And you came basically to the same conclusion. Yeah.
And I'm gonna, if you guys want to write down the order that I go in, you can go in this order, this process, and it might help avoid wasting some time. Start with the blue button. You notice, the very first thing I did is set that filter so the blue button would appear. If the blue button doesn't work, then you go to all sold properties. If all sold doesn't work, then you go to all activity sold properties. If all activity sold properties doesn't work, then you have to expand out your sold date to a bigger range. Instead of just 3 months, it might be 6 months, but you have to subtract out like 10% because it's an old amount. And as this market changes, that percent might even be more, might be 15% or even 20%. Right now, I'm just subtracting 10, but that might change over time. And if that don't work, the fifth way to expand, which is what I did on this property, is actually expanding the distance that you're looking. Instead of the half a mile out, I made a bigger range to compare against. And so those are the 5 ways that I look at it, step by step. The rule of thumb is you have to come up with a comp. Now, if you think of yourself as like an appraisal guy from a bank, you're wanting to get a mortgage and they have to come appraise it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to find a comp, period. So if there's nothing in the area, they're going to expand out. But this process helps you to try to find something faster than just going. If you just start with all activity, you're going to have a lot of properties there that you don't really need to look at. All righty. Now, our time is up, but I do have a question from Pamela here. Since the PFs are now on RE Simply, are we still using Google Sheets? Also, do we submit approved properties in green directly into RE Simply? So no, you're not on Google Sheets. We want people to put it directly into the CRM for a couple of reasons. One reason is because that's how you can tell if somebody else got the property already or not. If somebody else is already working on the property, there's no sense in you working on it, or you're just wasting your time. So by starting with the CRM, you can type in the address and know immediately whether you need to work on it or not. Secondly, all that detail gets put into the CRM instead of in a spreadsheet that can get deleted or get lost. And we had that happen already. Someone's spreadsheet got deleted and then all that information was wiped out. And that was for multiple people. And that's a challenge. But if it goes into the CRM, you don't have to worry about it being wiped out. It's there. And plus we use that information to pay off of. So, we need the